It started with a phone call. A sharp ring cut through the dimly lit office of Detective James Calloway, pulling him from his paperwork. It was late, just past 10:43 p.m., and he had been seconds away from calling it a night. But when he picked up the phone, the voice on the other end made his blood run cold. "Detective, my friend is missing." The woman on the line, Rebecca Hayes, was frantic. She kept repeating the same name over and over, Emily Carter. She wouldn't just disappear, Rebecca insisted, voice breaking. "She was supposed to meet me for lunch today. She never showed. I've called her 100 times, her phone goes straight to voicemail." Calloway reached for his notepad. "When was the last time you heard from her?" "Last night. She texted me before going on a date. Said she was meeting a guy named Daniel Reeves. That's all I know." A slow, uneasy feeling settled in Calloway's gut. The name was unfamiliar, but something about the situation felt wrong. Women went missing all the time, but this had all the warning signs of something more sinister. By morning, Emily Carter was officially classified as a missing person. By noon, detectives were combing through her phone records, her social media, anything that might lead them to Daniel Reeves. And by nightfall, Calloway and his partner, Detective Sarah Lawson, were standing outside an old, isolated house at the edge of town. The address? Registered under Daniel Reeves. A man with no criminal record. No history of violence. No reason to be a suspect. Except for one thing. Emily Carter was still missing. And Reeves wasn't answering the door. A chill ran through Calloway as he stepped onto the porch. The house was old, the wood warped with age. A single porch light flickered above them, casting eerie shadows along the cracked walls. He knocked. No answer. He knocked again. Still nothing. Then, movement. A flicker of motion behind the curtain. "Police!" Lawson called out. "We just want to talk." Silence. Then, from inside the house, a muffled scream. It was faint, barely audible over the hum of crickets, but Calloway heard it. And he wasn't waiting. He stepped back and kicked the door. Hard. The frame splintered, the door flying open with a deafening crack. Inside, the air was thick, stale, suffocating, wrong. The first thing they saw was the chair. And in it, Emily. Her wrists were bound. Her face streaked with tears. Her mouth covered with duct tape. Terrified. But she wasn't alone. The house was quiet, too quiet. And then Calloway saw it. A single door, slightly ajar. A trap door leading down into a basement. A gust of cold air wafted from the darkness below. And it carried a scent Calloway couldn't ignore. Rotting wood. Mildew. And something metallic. Blood. Calloway signaled to his team before moving toward the door. He pulled out his flashlight, the beam cutting through the suffocating blackness below. One step. Two. The stairs groaned under his weight, the sound echoing in the cavernous dark. The deeper they went, the colder it got. And then, they saw it. The basement was massive, far larger than the house above should allow. Metal cages lined the walls. Empty. Except for one. Calloway's flashlight settled on a figure curled up inside, a woman. Alive. Barely. Her skin was pale, her wrists raw from struggle. Her clothes, dirty, torn. She flinched at the light, pressing herself against the bars as if she'd been trapped for years. "Oh my God," Lawson whispered. Calloway's stomach churned. "How long has she been down here?" The woman didn't answer. She just stared. And that's when he noticed the walls. Photos. Old missing persons flyers. Stacks of newspaper clippings. Some dating back over a decade. Calloway moved closer, his breath catching in his throat. These weren't just random victims. These were cases that had gone cold. And in the center of it all, an old, wooden table. On top of it lay a set of surgical tools. Still stained with blood. A slow, sick realization crawled over him. This wasn't just a kidnapping. This was a hunting ground. A sound cut through the suffocating silence. A creak. The air shifted. Calloway turned, flashlight jerking toward the shadows. And then, he saw him. A figure lunged from the darkness, a glint of steel flashing in the dim light. A knife. Calloway barely had time to react before Daniel Reeves attacked. The screen fades to black, just as the blade comes down. What detectives uncovered in that basement was only the beginning. Detective James Calloway barely had time to react before the blade came down. A flash of silver. A rush of movement. Instinct kicked in. He twisted his body, dodging the initial strike, but the knife grazed his arm, sending a sharp sting through his skin. Blood bloomed through his sleeve. "Drop the weapon!" Lawson's voice cut through the chaos as she raised her gun, aiming it straight at Daniel Reeves. Reeves didn't stop. His eyes were wild, unhinged. "She's mine," he hissed, lunging forward again. Calloway barely managed to grab Reeves' wrist, wrestling for control of the knife. They crashed against the table, sending surgical tools clattering to the floor. The metallic scent of blood filled the air. Reeves was stronger than he looked, fueled by something far darker than desperation. Calloway gritted his teeth, struggling to keep the knife away from his throat. The veins in Reeves' arms bulged as he pushed harder. And then, a gunshot. Bang! Reeves froze. His body jerked. Then, he crumpled. Lawson stood behind him, gun still raised, her breathing heavy. The bullet had torn through Reeves' shoulder, sending him crashing onto the blood-stained floor. Still alive. But no longer a threat. Calloway exhaled, rolling off of Reeves and gripping his wounded arm. "Nice shot," he muttered. Lawson let out a shaky breath. "I wasn't aiming for his shoulder." With Reeves restrained, the detectives turned their attention to the horror around them. The woman in the cage, her sunken eyes locked onto Calloway's. "Help me," she whispered, voice hoarse from disuse. Calloway moved fast, grabbing his pocket knife and cutting through the rusted lock. As the door swung open, the woman collapsed into his arms. "You're safe now," he said, steadying her trembling body. But even as the words left his mouth, he knew they were a lie. Nothing about this was safe. Lawson turned toward the wall of missing persons posters, her hand hovering over a familiar face. "Oh my God," she breathed. The photos weren't just trophies. They were a timeline. Some of the pictures were faded, almost decades old. Others were new, barely yellowed. The victims changed, but the pattern stayed the same. Within the hour, the house was swarming with officers. Crime scene techs moved carefully, documenting every inch of the basement. One of them, Detective Mark Harris, approached Calloway, his face pale. "You need to see this," he said grimly. Calloway followed him to a far corner of the basement, where officers had uncovered something hidden beneath a tarp. A trapdoor. The detectives exchanged a look before carefully lifting it open. A narrow tunnel stretched into the darkness below. The air that drifted up was thick. Rotten. Lawson swallowed. "What the hell is this?" Harris shined a light down into the passage. And then they saw it. Wooden coffins. Stacked. Row after row. Calloway's stomach twisted. He slowly climbed down, his boots echoing against the dirt floor. His fingers trembled as he reached for the first coffin. It was old. Splintered. A name was carved into the lid. He took a breath and pried it open. Inside, a skeleton. Bound. Mouth still frozen in a silent scream. His pulse pounded. He turned toward the next coffin. Then the next. Each one held a different victim. Each told a different story. And then, at the very end, Calloway found something even worse. A coffin that wasn't empty. A coffin with a breathing body inside. A coffin that had been nailed shut, just hours ago. And the person inside was still alive. The trapped survivor gasped for air, just as their eyes snapped open. And Calloway realized, to his horror, that Reeves might not have been working alone. Detective James Calloway barely had time to process what he was seeing. The coffin creaked, the wood splintering slightly as the person inside shifted. A muffled gasp. A frantic struggle. They were alive. "Help me get this open," Calloway barked, grabbing his pocket knife to pry at the nails. His hands shook. Detective Rebecca Lawson was already at his side, yanking at the lid. "Hold on. We're getting you out." With one final pull, the wood gave way, and the lid flew open. Inside, a woman gasped for air. Her face was streaked with dirt and sweat, her lips cracked and dry. Wide, hollow eyes darted around in terror. She looked half dead, but alive. Calloway reached for her hands, his voice urgent but steady. "You're safe now." The woman flinched at his touch, her entire body trembling. She tried to speak, but her voice was a raspy whisper. Lawson leaned in, straining to hear. "What is it? What's your name?" The woman swallowed hard, her breath shallow. And then, she spoke one chilling word. "Run." Calloway's blood ran cold. "Run from what?" Lawson asked, glancing around the tunnel. The woman's chest heaved as she struggled to get the words out. "Not him." Her sunken eyes locked onto Calloway's. "The other one." Silence. The air around them grew heavier. Lawson's pulse pounded in her ears. "What do you mean, the other one?" The woman's gaze flicked toward the far corner of the basement. A darkened doorway. A passage leading even deeper underground. And then, a sound. A slow, deliberate creak. A door somewhere beyond the tunnel had just opened. Lawson's fingers tightened around her gun. Calloway exhaled sharply. "We're not alone." The basement lights flickered. A low, guttural sound rumbled from the shadows. Calloway lifted his flashlight, aiming it toward the passage. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing another doorway. The entrance to a hidden chamber. The woman in the coffin started sobbing. "Please," she begged. "He's still here." Lawson raised her gun. "Who?" The woman's voice cracked. Daniel Reeves had a partner. Calloway and Lawson exchanged a look. Reeves was already in police custody, which meant someone else had been down here all along. Watching. Waiting. And they were still here. The sound of footsteps echoed from the darkness. Slow. Measured. Unafraid. Calloway gritted his teeth. His grip tightened on his gun. A figure emerged. Tall. Gaunt. Eyes black with malice. And then, the overhead lights went out. Darkness swallowed them whole. A whisper slithered through the air, chilling them to the bone. "You shouldn't have come here." For a moment, there was nothing, only blackness and the sound of their own breathing. Then, footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming closer. Detective James Calloway tightened his grip on his gun. He couldn't see. He couldn't move. His instincts screamed, they were being hunted. Beside him, Detective Rebecca Lawson exhaled shakily. The survivor in the coffin whimpered, curling into herself. And then, a voice. Low. Calm. Too calm. "I knew you'd come." A faint click echoed through the underground chamber. A lighter flicked open. For a split second, the flame illuminated the face of a tall, skeletal man with hollow eyes and a sinister smirk. The flame vanished. Darkness returned. Calloway's voice was sharp. "Who the hell are you?" A soft chuckle. "Too close. You already know." Lawson's stomach twisted. Daniel Reeves had a partner. And this man, this shadow in the dark, had been here all along. Watching. Waiting. A flicker of red emergency lighting crackled overhead, casting a dim glow on the chamber's walls. And that's when they saw it. The horror. Against the far wall, 6 more coffins. Some nailed shut. Some are open. Some empty. The stench of decay thickened the air. The man in the dark took another step forward. His voice was eerily polite. "You shouldn't have come here." Lawson fired. The gunshot exploded through the chamber, deafening in the enclosed space. A flash of light. A blur of movement. And then, nothing. Calloway's breath came fast. "Did you?" Lawson shook her head. "He's gone." A metallic clang rang out as a hidden door slammed shut. Calloway spun toward the survivor in the coffin, who was shaking violently. "Who is he?" Her eyes were wild with terror. "The real monster." Somewhere in the darkness, the man whispered again. "You're already dead." Detective James Calloway could feel his heartbeat pounding in his ears. Somewhere in the darkness, the man was still there. Watching. Waiting. The survivor in the coffin was sobbing now, her body trembling so violently it was clear she was on the verge of collapse. Detective Rebecca Lawson reloaded her gun, eyes darting across the chamber, scanning for any movement. A cold wind snaked through the underground lair. And then, a whisper. "It's already over." The emergency lights flickered once. Twice. Then died. The room was plunged into absolute blackness. Calloway and Lawson moved fast, sweeping their flashlights across the chamber. Nothing. The coffins stood eerily still. The metal door on the far side of the room was ajar. Calloway lunged forward, gun raised. Freeze! But the man in the dark was already gone. A rusted ladder led up to a hidden exit. Above, the sound of a car engine roaring to life. Tires screeching. Lawson clenched her jaw. He planned this. Calloway slammed his fist against the wall. They had been seconds too late. But there was no time for regret. Because behind them, the survivor spoke. You don't understand. He's not done. As the police swarmed the house, they made one final, chilling discovery. A locked steel door, hidden behind a false wall in the basement. When they pried it open, they found the real horror. More bodies. Some chained to the walls. Lifeless. Others, still breathing. The survivors, malnourished, broken, but alive. They had been waiting for a rescue that never came. Until now. Calloway turned to Lawson, his face grim. How many? A paramedic's voice cracked. 10, maybe more. By the time dawn broke, the media had exploded with the news. Daniel Reeves had never been working alone. The real mastermind was still out there. And whoever he was, he had vanished. No fingerprints. No ID. Just a whisper in the dark. Lawson stared at the missing persons board, where a sketch of the unknown suspect had just been pinned up. Her stomach twisted. Because deep down, she knew. They had only scratched the surface. And this wasn't over. Somewhere in the city, a man stepped into the shadows and smiled. Let's play again soon. If you find this story interesting, kindly subscribe for more. Also, share in the comments section where you are watching from.